this baby girl I know, I call her a baby girl, but it's really because she's like my little sister. We went out the other day and she showed me like a meme, and I was like,
you didn't get it?
like, I'm like, okay.
I never fucking get it. I never get those jokes. I'm like, what is this?
I'm like,
do you ever wonder who you were before you became who you thought you were supposed to be? This has been the yearning question of my life. My name is Audra Lee, and this is Unbecoming, a Therapist. A video and audio diary of my journey through tearing away the layer of my identity as a therapist. An identity I used as a way to hide and protect myself in almost all of my relationships. This podcast is for anyone who has felt the pressures of the world to conform in some way, or anyone who felt they had to wear a mask to gain the love and acceptance they were so desperately needing. Welcome to Unbecoming, a Therapist.
Yeah. I'm so happy to have you here for this conversation.
yeah,
This is dope because I feel like you are one of those people who immediately when I met you, I felt like you were just completely yourself.
oh, thank you.
But you had this quiet little voice, and I was like, but then as time went on, the layers kept unveiling themselves, and I'm like, oh, she got a lot of thoughts, and like, I loved it.
Yeah. I just like to watch. Like, it's so funny because Sarah, when she wants to watch TV, she'll say, watch, mommy. And I'm like, you want to watch TV?
She's like, do what I say do.
Yeah,
watch.
No, literally yesterday. She did. I was like pretending to be asleep, and I was like,
Is that your sleep?
That was. And so she started to do it, and she's like, "Mommy, do, Mom."
She's a classic only child.
Yes. Yeah.
She got it. She's like, I'm going to say what I need to say.
Yeah, and she always does. Like,
aren't you the only child?
No. I was the only child living at home with my dad. For brothers.
Oh.
I have a 25-year-old brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you lived as an only child.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you relate to that experience?
I think when you're the oldest, you can have a little bit of only child syndrome because for a time you were, and you know,
that's a really good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
like the oldest having some connection to only children, but I feel like also only children have a lot of burdens usually too.
Yeah, and I mean when you're the oldest, you're responsible,
right? Totally. I think, but you don't have that as an only. You don't be responsible for shit.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, but I don't think she'll have only child syndrome, only because when I observe her with other children, like she's really, really friendly and nice, and she also has brother and sister.
She does. She's definitely not technically a only.
I think definitely have like the youngest, whatever, like how the youngest is like super spoiled and very just
put it like a little
can do no wrong
princess.
Yeah,
she is. Taryn's a little princess. You baby girl. Yeah. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are, not what you do. Who you are, rather.
I am a lot.
Yeah, I know. You got a lot of titles.
Well, I'm a mother. That's like the newest and the most exciting part of my life. I'm a daughter. I am a granddaughter, a great granddaughter. So that kind of signals to the family members that I'm really, really, that helped raise me, I guess. I am a friend. I'm a teacher. I am a healer. I'm a listener. Yeah.
You're all of it. You're a partner.
I am a partner. I am a partner.
The first identity you named was a mother. And it's beautiful because we're going to talk about mother wounds, Black mother wounds specifically. and reflect on my episode with my mom, which, you know, you immediately came to mind too, because when I think about mothering, like I think about you, like you are such a nurturing and loving mom and a very present mom, which I think is beautiful. So I'm honored to have you here to talk about this. But we started getting, what'd you say?
I said thank you for inviting me.
Of course. We started getting into it, but like thoughts about the episode looking back.
Yes.
I'm so curious.
Yeah. So I didn't know much about your mother or your father before I watched these 2 episodes. And so I was just very surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. Like, oh my God, this is like Audra. Like these 2 people coming together. I can see very much their influence on you, whether it's your style or just like your demeanor or how you speak. Like when I heard your mom, I just thought like, this is Audra speaking.
People often say we sound alike too.
Yeah.
So when you watch the episode with me and my mom, what were some of the things that felt kind of like you could either relate to similar dynamics with your experience, or things that felt very different, or like, you know, aspects of it that like might have connected to you?
It was, I would want to say the piece about like you feeling like maybe she wasn't your mom. I think we had maybe some conversation about like me not growing up with my mom, and so like feeling, I don't want to name the feeling for you, but for me was abandonment.
No, I agree. I think that's the feeling too.
And like, you know, just even though she was there, just feeling like that loss of a relationship with her, I think I really resonated with, because I just didn't have, you know, her presence at all.
Gotcha.
And she didn't pass, or like, you know, she wasn't somewhere far away. She just wasn't able to
be in your life.
Yeah.
Can you talk, because so this is an interesting aspect, I think, for both of us, which is the emotion is abandonment, but there's still physical presence there, which I think in this experience can make it challenging. And I don't know how you felt, because I know your mom wasn't necessarily physically there, and I want you to kind of talk a little bit about what that's been like. But there still is this weird thing that happens when somebody's hasn't died or hasn't completely like gone away. You can still see them or know they're around, but still not have emotional access to them. That makes it, I think, easy in some ways to minimize. Or at least for me, I think I was always like, am I overreacting to this feeling? Like, why wasn't your mom around, like when you talk about her not being present?
So when we had the conversation, and I just want to back up before I say that, to address like the person not being like physically there or physically present, but like, you know, that they're around. When I was in high school, it was so random, but like the teacher, one of the questions that we had was like, would you rather someone that you love pass away, or someone that you feel like you love pass away, versus
what the fuck?
It's like,
what the fuck? This is dumb. Oh my God. Oh my God. Some of the stuff we look back on, I'm like, yo, no wonder we're fucked.
But he made a good point. He was trying to make a point, and it was like, would you rather someone you love, or, you know, you feel like you love, pass away, or would you no longer be able to see them again? Like, which one? And like, how do you feel like you would handle? I don't know why this question came up or how, but this was the question, and it always like sat with me about my mom, because it was like, I knew that she was alive, and like, she, like, if she was dead, I felt like, all right, you know, I kind of have to make peace because there's no coming back from that.
Totally. There's closure almost.
Yeah, there's closure, but she wasn't, and she wasn't like far away,
right?
You know, and I think for me, it was abandonment, but it was also shame, like feeling like there was something that I did or like something about me that kept this person that I felt like should be there for me away from me.
Okay.
So it was all of that with like knowing she's like right in Greenbelt. Like I'm in DC and she in Greenbelt.
Right. Which is like what is that, 30 minutes?
30 minutes, maybe 45 with traffic, but like it wasn't far.
Okay.
And when I finally spoke to her, which was when I was 26, 27, she was expressing to me that she didn't feel mentally capable. And so
did that make you feel better?
No. And no, it didn't. Like I eventually had to accept like this is my mom, but she's also just a person.
Yeah.
And just allowing her to be a person that, if we're being honest, has no real influence aside from like genetics and, you know, things that I idealized or hoped for when I was young.
Totally. That, I mean, I think the Black mother wound whole concept, right? And I'm gonna read a little bit about what that even means, so we can break it down. But the concept of a mother, in and of itself, I feel sets a mother up to fail inevitably too, because the expectation is so high.
Yeah,
like it's to your point. We're talking about something that really just happens to be so, and yet we have this expectation. You should know me. You should fully understand me. You should always know how to get it right. You should be nurturing but strong. But like, you know, and bake cookies, but go to work and be like, it is just like this untenable standard. So it's interesting what all goes into what we project onto mothers. In general. So it almost like leads to a wound naturally.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of factors that, and like you said, expectations, I think that society as a whole, but like maybe not the people in our immediate circle, are putting on mothers. And so I think the anxiety, like if you don't have a grasp on your anxiety beforehand, just get ready. Hold on. Strap down.
Right.
Because I mean, it can feel like a lot. I mean, it is a lot, but like you can
when you
feel
become
it.
a mother.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
Yeah.
And to become a mother and to know like, oh, I had all these things that I was just so upset about my mom about, and it's just like, well, hold on, girl, you might need that time. I don't know how long you need, but you might need some time, because you know you start to experience it, and I'm not sure to what extent for my mother in particular was just too much, because she went on to have another daughter 2 years after me, and you know, like they were they were in relationship.
How old were you when your mom left? So she decided she had you decided at some point that she couldn't do it and moved away.
Yeah, basically. She had even, I don't know, like if this was her or like her parent. I was in line to like be adopted by a whole nother. Yeah, like before my dad and my grandmother knew, like.
So she put you up for adoption?
Yeah, like I was already, it was this white family this is on the account of my grandmother who always explains it this way. And she was like, they were collecting babies from all over. Like they had, she was like, they had babies.
Some random white family.
Ooh, yeah. They had babies from all different backgrounds, basically. That's what Arlene says.
Okay.
But we were just
we don't know.
We don't know
if that's. We don't know. Take that out of the facts. Put that into
that's something that my grandmother always says. But you know, my dad, I guess like you have to sign over your parentalship
before they can
make it official.
Oh, and, good. Good.
They didn't. You know, my dad's like, no, I'll keep her. Like,
yeah.
So yeah.
Got you. How old were you? Were you a baby?
Yeah, like I was like newly born, I guess. Wow. I think they said, if I'm not mistaken, they said they got me when I was about 3 or 4 months.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Do you remember growing up wanting your mom? Like wanting her around?
Yes, but I think in hindsight, it's just like I wanted a mom. I wanted like whatever I thought that a mom was or would be to me, which I think is just natural for any child. And, you know, that I guess helped me develop my relationship with my grandmother and my great grandma. But, you know, there was always some times where it just wasn't enough or didn't feel like enough.
Gotcha.
Naturally, I think, because just seeing like how me and my daughter are, it's like I couldn't imagine. Like I couldn't imagine not, you know, being there with her, for her.
Totally.
And so I just assumed that that's what I was experiencing, just longing for that. Because I mean, if you think about it, me and my mother have had a relationship before I was earthside.
Gotcha.
I was in her belly for 9 months and growing and listening to her voice, and I do think that has an impact on the child. So
absolutely,
I think you long for those things that you remember.
Totally, because there's that symbiotic dynamic that's happening while you're, you know, growing in utero.
Yeah, that's your first home.
Right. Totally. It's you talk about the episode and not resonating, where like I for anybody who hasn't watched it yet, go watch it firstly. But to reflect on this idea of feeling like I was adopted and that being something that I think what I was trying to convey during that time was like something about my mom was inaccessible. And as we've gotten older, she's been able to tell me that when I was a baby, she felt she had all of the things she needed to be able to parent me in that role, right? And then at somewhere along the way, the things that I needed became things she felt she couldn't give. And that was like times where she would try to maybe comfort me and I would push her away. And what I realized in that conversation was somewhere, I think very young, because like I was a very independent kid, somewhere very young, she felt rejected by me.
Yeah.
And then I think there was a split where like there was no longer an emotional ability, or at least from my experience, an emotional ability to like access her.
Yeah.
So that was like, another thing I don't think we talk about is what rejection parents feel to, like mothers feel to. But yeah, I thought, that's what I was thinking about when you talked about the piece on the episode about abandonment.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I think because mine was, I guess, like the reverse, right? I didn't have a reference point.
Gotcha.
And I still kind of, struggle with that. I think seeing you and your mom and you all's dynamic, I think that's why I kind of collect older women as mothers. In some aspect, I feel like I have some mentors that have been very motherly toward me and, just exhibit some of the characteristics that I would want in a mom. And I think that's how I kind of made up for that. But I'm curious because I did remember, or I do recall the portion of the episode where you talked, I think this was with either your dad or your mom, where you talked with about the therapist that inspired you. And what made her more accessible to you than your mom? Like, what was the connection?
That's
there?
a really good question. So another thing my mom and I have talked about is neurodivergence and like what role that plays in all of our personalities. And I think something that we've talked about is what her ability to kind of like sit still and like talk to me and like connect with me, because my mom is she's like a very active person, so she's always kind of like up and bouncing around. And for me, with my stimuli, my nervous system that I was born with, that was incredibly overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
So my mom is she's an extrovert. She loves to cook and bake and talk, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to like sit in a dark room, read a book, you know what I'm saying? And I want out and have like philosophical conversations. And she's just like, what the fuck? Get out the house. She was always worried about me like being cooped up in the house, but so our personalities had a very different distinction, I think. So this woman was, she was very intentional in the way that she communicated with me. And I think I don't think it was the way that I was wired really was drawn to someone who was kind of, their baseline was still and calm. Her energy was like, she was settled. Yeah. And that, I could read that. Even as a kid, I could feel that. And so that was like, it just felt like safety. Like I could like let my shoulders down. But I think another thing about the Black mother wound piece is, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but what I have seen for most Black women that I know is that because of the Black mother wound, they become parentified children.
Explain that for me.
And the parentified child is a child that essentially steps into the role of mother or the role of parent, right? It can be boys or girls or men or women. But they step into this role as a child to parent the adults in their lives. So look, and so I know you feel connected to that too. So like I was a little mini woman, and I was like, again, realizing I think pretty early on, like these people don't got what they need to be able to, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I had to figure it out. Yeah. And that puts you in a position where you deny your own needs. And I think that's where the woundedness comes from. You don't even know that now in every dynamic, you're denying your needs to step into the needs of others. And that's beautiful when you have some intention and you're an adult. Yeah. When you're 4,
that can be a problem.
That's a problem. Yeah. You got a whole experience now that you are not being able to tap into, and it creates a dysfunction. Yeah. So that's what I see in the Black community is like a bunch of people that didn't have a chance to be children.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's spot on. I mean, I would even say like that was my experience growing up, especially having a dad that could basically be my brother and, totally. Basically looking at my grandmother as my mom. Right. And so she has a son and a daughter, and then she has me, her granddaughter, but like we're all kind of being raised the same, totally. In the same place. So, you're then like kind of figuring it out. Like there's no,
we're all like figuring it out together. Nobody's gotten this.
Yeah, like nobody is around you that's your age. You're always around older people, and so you begin to kind of become a little old person.
Absolutely. All the women that I've been drawn to are little old women.
Yeah.
And we're all, and I remember hearing this podcast, the Black Mother one. Did I send that to you?
I don't know if you sent it to me. You may have mentioned it, but I did. I have seen it.
You've seen that, yeah. Jennifer Arnice, I think is her name. But just even that concept, and then sharing it with people, and people being like, "Yo, this like is speaking to something."
Yeah.
And knowing that we all of my friends, and this is why I'm drawn to all of you, have this like groundedness and this maturity, but also it's like when I ask most of my friends, what do you do for a hobby? Can't nobody, you know what I mean? Because we're like so fucking responsible. Everything's about responsibility, and like being there for other people and like, doing the work. And
one of my homegirls just told me, like, you my responsible friend.
Exactly.
Like, I know when I get around you, I gotta get myself together because she don't play that.
Exactly. You're the one that's like, no, and like, well, this is what we should do. I want to just read off real quick what they define, what we're defining as the Black mother one. So it is the emotional pain and difficulties that can arise from strained relationships with mothers and how it affects particularly Black women. It can be caused by a number of factors, including physical or emotional neglect, criticism, a lack of emotional support, a mother who was unable to provide love and nurture due to her own emotional or physical abuse, a mother who had an untreated mental health condition or substance abuse issue. So there's a lot of things that could be happening, but it's a concept that I'm glad we're now talking about. And I think, I don't know how you feel, but it's a little scary to step into talking about it too, because I think as the responsible kid, seeming like a victim is so uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, I think it's like you're trying to figure out a solution so it doesn't seem like you were a victim of what it is that, I mean, you really had no control over it. And so I think
the way that I, for a long time, I coped was to act like it wasn't happening. I think that was for a long time. I was like, no, I'm fine. Everything was fine.
Yeah. Even just saying like, I'm fine. Like when you're not fine is just like, I think that's even
fucked up.
Yeah, it's definitely fucked up, but it's a big part of just trying to be responsible. Like you're trying to manage yourself, your emotions, your needs, so that they are not overwhelming to others.
Ooh. And
it is.
When do you see that most come up for you?
Well, all the time,
every single day.
Every time this watch ticks. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's, I've went through the motion of thinking that it's people pleasing, but it really has nothing to do with other people, for real, for real. Like, it's about me managing myself like I've always done, so that, shit gets done, I'm okay, and life continues to run in a way that feels safe for me, because this is what I've been doing since I've been young.
See, this is the shit I'm talking about. Your mind. So the idea of people pleasing, to understand that for some people, probably people who have a mother wound, a Black mother wound, we're talking about specifically, and are kind of these parentified children in a way, are not necessarily people pleasing as much as they are trying to regulate their own fucking nervous systems, because no one really was there holding that for them.
Yes.
Yo.
Yes.
My mind.
I mean, I know that.
My mind is blunt.
It's a lot. Ooh, I'm sorry, I tapped it. It's a lot of people out here who think like, oh, I'm a people pleaser, let me work on that, and that doesn't resonate with what they're doing. You're not people pleasing. you're trying to please yourself. Because nobody has ever, like you said, held you in that way. And like, I think, yeah, nobody has ever held you in that way. And so this is you being your own container and all the stuff inside it too. Absolutely. And so
I'll tell you now, you talk about what makes, we talk about marriage or partnership or whatever you want to call it, that then taking your ass into a relationship, an intimate relationship, and trying to figure out how to now tell yourself it's safe enough to like stop functioning as your own little like Amazon or like, you know what I mean? Like I am my industry and I have to like do all the things for myself and I have to be self-contained and I have to overfunction for everybody, and to be like, you don't have to do that anymore. It's like, are you sure? Sounds good. That's how I felt. I mean, me and Brian had talked about that so much. Like, yo, I got you. Mm-hmm. You know how many times we had to both say that to each other before we like, I think this year has been the year in which we both finally believed that. Yeah. Because it was like, I need to see some consistency here. Yeah. People who said that they had me didn't actually have me. Yeah. So. And add the mother wound on top of that, the main person that you would think that has you doesn't have you. Do you think we should believe that, or should we, like, if we're talking about the mother wound, the black mother wound, we're talking about, there's definitely some deficiencies, and I think historically Black people have not gotten their needs met. Then we're talking about transgenerationally. Now, 3 generations back, they were whipped and chained and beaten and dispersed across the, and like murdered in front of their loved ones. I mean, sick, pervasive shit that has happened in our lineage. And then these people who have survived then decide to have children with an inkling of love or access or capability left, and then they pour that into their children and so on. Yeah. And then we're all kind of getting deficits of love because we just don't have it to give. Should we continue to have that expectation for mothers? Should we change that? You know what I'm saying? I think because we continue to reproduce, there is love to give. I want us to be, or I'll say I am very optimistic about the amount of love that Black people can generate for themselves and their family. I think there are factors that make us feel like, maybe we don't have enough or like we are not enough. But the very fact of us continuing to come together and make more of us, in and of itself, is an overwhelming abundance of love, especially with the things that we're going through. Right. But even with all of that, we can be godly, we can be godlike, but we are human. Yeah. And so capacity is something that I think really is maybe one of the roots of mother wounds, right? Is these women, our ancestors, the women in our family, the women in the folks that are watching their family, like have endured so much, and they put this love into a baby and they think that, this is the love that I have, this is enough. And then, the human side kicks in and it's like, yes, I do love it, but I also have to work, or I also all of the other aspects that comes with living in a world that wasn't created with us in mind. Yeah. And so I think the intentionality is what brings forth the life in the first place. But like,
the reality is what causes it to be so, to feel so hard or to be so harsh, you know. Either way, I mean, it's the reality is what causes everything, right?
Absolutely.
To kind of pile on top and, you know, make mothering something that can be desirable, but also just incapable for some women, you know.
Totally.
And I think my mother was one of those people, you know. And even with all the things your mom had going on, that rejection she may have felt from you, then the capacity kind of wanes low.
Absolutely.
And not intentionally because she still loves you, but just, okay, well.
Because it's the realities of life. And looking back as a grown woman, I don't even know and don't understand how any women are able, I'm amazed at mothers. I'm like, wow, you are keeping a human alive. And also paying bills. What?
Yeah.
That is wild. So yeah, I'm amazed. I think it's an incredibly high bar. And I think that to start to raise our children, because I believe it's a collective community experience, to raise our children to understand fully who women are and what they're dealing with and what they're up against, I think will show the humanness to children more. Because I think part of the deficit, the disservice to women, and why we also see the mother wound, is because we have such a high expectation that it's not able to ever really be met.
Yeah.
So the integration of starting to disentangle with what we have, what we say, what we mean when we say mother, I feel like is important.
In what way? How would you define a mother?
I think someone who knows it's okay to ask for help. You know, someone who is trying to figure it out. Someone who desires to love but may not know how. I would have the definitions be a lot more spacious.
Yeah.
So that we could see mothering in everything.
Yeah.
I don't have children. I don't plan to actually birth children, but I believe I mother in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? To my clients, to my friends, to people, my husband. I mother. So but I don't think the definition currently would fit that, would allow space for that. What I do, you know what I'm saying? It's not. We don't think of it as that. We think of it as a very specific thing, even.
I think it may depend on
who you're talking
who
to.
you're talking to.
Gotcha.
Maybe when I was younger, my definition was different. You know.
Yeah.
Even for you, your definition of who your mom was different. You know. So
true.
You know, I think when you are experiencing certain things, as with anything, your experience with it is going to engage how you view it. And so for me, when I was younger, I was very angry at my mom. You know, I felt she was the cause of everything that was going wrong in my life because she wasn't in my life. And so, that translated into me, not really respecting women authority and not wanting women around. When my dad was dating, not really caring about, those women. And, they didn't do anything to me. It was my perception of my mother and, our relationship or the lack thereof. Or,
Totally.
Just but now I understand, looking back, how many women have mothered me, whether they were my biological mother or, or not. So, and then kind of collecting them from there once I was able to kind of put into I guess, my mind that even though I don't have my biological mother, I can be mothered. And so when you're talking about all the mothering that you do, I think, of course you're a mother, Granted, you may not have given birth physically to children, but you mother, like you mentioned. There are so many things, like you said, just universally that occur, and they're a form of mothering. When you have those teachers that you really enjoy at your school, and they kind of seem like your grandma or your auntie, like they're mothering. They're taking care of the community. They're nurturing. They're exhibiting the traits of motherhood through their works and through the way that they care for people around them. So,
absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I think you're right. You are absolutely right. It definitely depends on the person. Like who I'm communicating to. And when I'm talking to you, I feel like I get seen in that way. So thank you. How has your dynamic, because you talked about, I love that you talked about like your dynamic with your mom making it challenging to be in relationship with female authority. How has it impacted your dynamic with women friendships?
I think maybe in this instant, there's a lot of, I was thinking people pleasing, but I'm trying to work through that before I say it. But a lot of anxiety, feel accepted. Again, just being weird anyway. It was just like, like, are these girls gonna want to really be my friend? Like,
do you do group?
Like, not really, groups? Not anymore. I tried in high school, and it was a hot mess.
You were like, tried it?
Yeah, like, good. I like meeting people just in general, like very authentically. And so I think in high school it was very forced to like click up, and like it was just like, I really don't even want to be around y'all. But y'all keep pressing me out. And I'm not saying that to say like I was hot shit or anything like that, but I was new. And like I kind of gravitated toward the guys that was chilling. And I was chilling. Like I didn't even really talk for real until like 10th grade. So it's just like, I don't like y'all. I don't want to be out here with y'all. Please let me just do my work and go home. But, to kind of get into, I guess, like the habit of being around people in society, like middle school was fun. Elementary school, great. But high school is like, let's just get it over with.
I hear you.
So
I totally hear you.
I get it. I tried, and I ended up getting jumped. And it was like, all right, this is why I told y'all I didn't want to be outside. This is why I said what I said. I didn't even want to do this. And, you just chilling being yourself, and not everybody can handle that, whether it's childhood. I'm sorry.
Okay. I got jumped too. So
yeah. So it was like,
what was the reason? Did they say? I mean, there's always some.
It was really just no reason for real. Like, I'm not a threatening person at all, Audra. Never have I. Like, I've always just been me, but maybe shorter. So it's just like, some girl thought that I didn't like her because they put me on three-way with somebody and try to like get me to say something. I'm just like, what is
three-way?
Yeah, like
not three-way.
And so the girl was scared and had like her friend that didn't even live in our neighborhood come and ride the bus, like with the intentions of beating me up. I skipped school that day, so I didn't know. I just came back to ride the bus to go home. I really did. I wasn't even there. And allegedly she was walking around huffing and puffing like a billy goat looking for me. And I'm just like, I don't even, like, I'm not thinking about y'all. So, yeah.
I'm laughing because that is absolutely my experience. I mean, I had to fight so many times, and I got jumped at least twice. And the reason was always, you think you're better. And I was like, I just don't think about anybody at all. Like, I'm not thinking about like my sphere. And I think, again, for me, I said I think of it as an only child lens, which was like my focus was very much on what I was focused on, which was like either getting out, making it out the hood, or like boys, or like, so my focus was very linear. And I think that lended to a lot of, for a lot of women, it lended itself to seeming like I thought I was better when I was just kind of indifferent.
Yeah. Like,
so
I'm not paying attention to y'all, but y'all are paying attention to me. Like,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's what
I literally came back, I did not go to school at all. I had no idea.
Wow.
And as I was walking home, they just, like, they was ready. I'm like, what are y'all doing? Like, I'm just minding my business.
Wow.
Yeah. So
okay. So it make you, to bring it back to how it impacts your relationships with women. It makes it so that, like, the dynamic of trying to develop relationships is maybe a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, it can be. I think because I know I'm a really good person, and like I like to be a good friend. So it used to be very hard to gauge out people's intention. And I've experienced like that thing in high school. It's a funny story, but I tell it because it's funny, and I just really. But like I've had other instances where people have like really taken advantage of me. Gotcha. And I think it was because I was so eager to be a good friend and like to be there for the person. And
totally,
I think that comes from not having a mom. I think my need to even want to engage in women in like a very serious way to like develop relationships comes from the lack of that relationship and like wanting to be intentional. And I feel very, very strongly about that. I don't take it lightly. And so that can come across as weird too to people sometimes.
I
girl really wants to be my friend.
I resonate with that, and I have had that. I'm this similar. Like, if I really vibe with somebody, I really want them to know and understand how much I care, and it has made it difficult for me to know like that double dutch game that has to happen. I think when you're first meeting somebody, and I have definitely had situations where women have thought, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I really like you, let's hang out, that I wanted to sleep with them. And I'm like, what?
Somebody in their mind, I think that also is projection of somebody else. Like if maybe they liked you more than they thought they did.
Right. Okay.
It's like, I'm just being regular.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, it's happened several times. So I'm like, maybe there's, but I do think it's that overcorrection thing where it's like, I'm like really trying to let it be known that I care and I want to connect with you. And then I think that could, and because I am queer, which is funny because being in a relationship, people don't care about that, or they don't even think that factors in somehow. I don't know. How does it impact your dynamic in your intimate relationship?
Of course. I think with us, I was very much in my masculine energy when we first met. And so I was very like direct, straightforward, like, but like when we would have issues, I couldn't communicate. And my fight or flight would kick in. And I would run. I would run, like, and I think sometimes when it comes to my emotions, like being able to express them, because I did grow up with my dad, the way in which I was allowed to express myself was hindered. And so when things got very intense, like I would kind of like hide myself so that I wouldn't get into more trouble for, like, I guess, my emotional outbursts.
Oh, so you tamp down your emotions because it wasn't okay for you to be soft.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were displaying emotions that were considered more vulnerable, then that was inappropriate. So you tamp those ones down.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so when you spoke about earlier, like being in a space that felt safe, but like not really knowing, it was very hard. And I think not having that balance of being able to be taught logic, taught emotional maturity and management on my, on my dad's, like, more masculine energy, like having, and I don't know like how my mom is, so I don't know how her energy would have been, but like being able to at the very least connect that communication piece, I think I would have a little bit more balance, maybe.
Gotcha.
In terms of being able to express myself and being able to express myself fully enough that I don't fear like having strong emotions and then running away.
Gotcha. Okay. I hear that. That makes total sense to me. I think a lot of times when I'm talking to people, they're talking about having a father wound too. Or a father wound distinctive from a mother wound. And so I think that create, like when you talk about the imbalance, like I can see how either one can create a distinction of like a hard, it makes it hard to be in relationship and be able to be secure. Because you are seeing the person or you're in relationship as a reflection of your own wounded self.
Yeah. So I think just being able to have that emotional security with at least one parent would make it, or would have made it easier when we were first dating. But I think the more I worked through my stuff with like a therapist or a coach, the more I can recognize it. And I'm not saying I always get it right now that I know, but like it is something that I'm doing extensive work on, trying to communicate better, because I think in general that just makes things easier for you and your partner.
Who taught you that? Who taught you that communication is like the truth and the light?
I think experience.
Okay.
Because I mean, I can even recognize it now as an adult as an issue between like me and my dad, and like just me and people in general. Like I know at one point I was very sassy, and so I was like, it's not what you
like
say.
An old black person told you that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, you know? And so that's communication. It's just like, why should I care? Like, I'm telling you what it is. But like,
it's the realization that, because not to be like, me too, but similarly, I'm realizing now that sassiness is I don't trust you, motherfuckers. Like adults. Like I don't believe that you are capable. That's what I hear when I see a child. We're calling sassy, but I think of it as like a kid who they've stepped into a role that was not theirs to have, and now they're like,
and now you got to prove to me.
You got to prove to me, because now I'm 7, but I'm really been operating like I'm 40.
Yeah, like I don't know if you really know, so now you know I gotta let you know.
Totally. Period. That part. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember. Dave Chappelle has a stand-up where he says, you know, he's like riding through a neighborhood. It might have been DC. He's like riding through a neighborhood, and he's like, I realized the limo driver was taking him in like a shady neighborhood because it's like liquor store. Like he's like, what the fuck? Where am I? He said he seen a baby on the corner. Do you remember this?
No.
He seen a baby on the corner, and he's like, I wanted to get out, but I realized the neighborhood wasn't safe, so he just rolled the window down. Was like, hey baby, go home. And the baby, he said the baby was like, nigga, I'm out here. I got kids to feed. He's like, oh shit. But that, I think that is like, it's hilarious, but it's so, it's so indicative.
Yeah.
Of like what we're talking about.
No, it's exactly what we're talking about. Like, yeah, I remember.
Like, put some respect on it.
Like, I know how to make eggs.
Right.
I know how to make oodles and noodles. Like, I'm an adult, literally. Like, I could scramble eggs. Like,
it's nothing.
Yeah. What you want, little bro? Be having eggs for breakfast, eggs and oatmeal, and oodles and noodles for lunch.
Gosh. The thing I love most about Black people is our ability to be resilient and not to put us on this like we should be strong, but our ability to take some shit that has happened to us and recognize and use levity and lightness to be able to figure out a solution.
Yeah. Like
when I think about this mother wound, it's deep shit. And I watched back the episode my mom and I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. Yeah. It was really challenging to watch it back because I could see all of the pain in between our interactions, right? So I don't know if people will be able to see that, or I don't even know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I think a little bit of it is you all addressing some things and just body language. Was like, okay,
it's like
let's brace ourselves for this.
Totally.
But I think the beauty of it is like you all getting through it,
right? And
like what can become of now that the conversations have been had.
Absolutely. That's how I feel. I feel on the other side of the mother woundedness to be able to start to see my mom as a woman and not my mother, which I think not to say she's not my mother, which is I can get back to respecting her for being her. I could get back to seeing her valued outside of what it had to be for me.
Yeah.
I could get back to understanding how I could show up for myself.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
That to me has been the biggest thing, is like put your big girl pants on and figure out how do you mother yourself.
Yeah.
And how can then we start teaching people how to do that, a lot younger, so that you don't not deny yourself, not self-abandon, but know when you need something and know how to advocate for what you need.
Yeah.
That has been fucking life-changing. And I think it's created such a much more fluid relationship with my mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, it was having the conversation and then allowing some closure to settle in so that I can humanize her and say, okay, this is like, I just needed to hear it. I felt, sorry.
That's okay.
I think you feel for so long that you want to just know and understand. And then when I think I was at the perfect age to understand, like, you're not going to know and understand everything. Let her speak her piece.
How old were you when you went to her?
Oh, we only talked on the phone.
Oh, you talked on the phone.
Yeah. And I think I was 27, 28.
Okay. So it's not that, it hasn't been that long ago.
No. I think I was in therapy. I was, just working through a lot of things, and I'm like, I just need this. I need this. Like, I just need this one thing. I also needed to get into school, but I didn't bother you for that. So just this one thing. And I think I was like leaving messages on her like work phone because she worked at the school I wanted to apply to. Like leaving messages on her work phone, like, please call me back. Like, I really just need to talk to you. So having that closure, going through all of the 1,001 emotions that I went through. And
was
then,
she remorseful to you? Was she?
No. I struggle with understanding if I felt like she was remorseful or she was just trying to get through it. You know, like it really made me like question, like I wanted to know more about her mental health, but then it was like maybe I don't want to know more. And so I just kind of left it at that. And I tried to move on as quickly as I could so I could get to the humanization part of it so that I can disperse of it, because it was like really like lingering, you know. And then I was able to address the father one because then that brought up all these things
Of course.
that I was blaming on my mother, but I mean, she wasn't the one doing it.
Right.
So it was nice to be able to do that. And I think when you have the person in there present and accessible and you're able to do that even better.
Yeah, it is. It's a luxury to be able to do it with the person while they're still present. Still possible even if not. And that's also something. But it's like to hear you talk about the fact that at 28 you were able to go to your mom, like call her up and be adamant that you needed something, to me feels like even before you talked to her, you were on a path of healing yourself. Because you started giving yourself a voice.
Yeah.
Like that shit is powerful as hell. And for you to talk to your dad. So I feel perfectly aligned with my thought process of having you for this episode, because it's been such a delight. It's been awesome to learn more about you too.
Yes.
Yeah, this was a dope conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Hey, it's your host, Audra. Thank you for listening to the Unbecoming a Therapist podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you comment, subscribe, and rate the show. It means the world. You can keep the conversation going over on Instagram at Unbecoming a Therapist. See you next time.